Hey everyone, I want to thank you for hosting me for my entrepreneurial session here for the month. I'm Ryan Payne, and just a reminder, I think we're live now. Hey, what's up? This is Ryan Payne for your monthly mentoring session. I'm not sure where this actually started, but basically, just give you a little background on what I do. Just a quick reminder, I have a wealth management business that I started from the ground up. So I'm happy to talk about anything when it comes to building a business from the ground up, anything with regards to wealth management, financial planning. Happy to answer all those questions for you. I do this every single month. So right now we got some great questions that came in today. So let's hop to it. Let's get to the questions. Let's solve all your problems. And the first question coming in today comes in from Kristen Ladis. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Kristen writes in, what are some of the most effective market research strategies when you have trouble getting in touch with online entrepreneurs making above six figures? And business description background here for Kristen is, I'm a launch copywriter for online entrepreneurs. I want to shift my messaging and branding towards higher level entrepreneurs, but have trouble getting in touch with them to ask questions. It's either I never get a reply, or their assistant will say no to me. I also can't tell who makes that kind of money just looking at their profile. I write sales copy for online coaches launching product services who want to grow their businesses through persuasive writing. Okay, well, Lisa, you have a really good niche here. I think that's the first rule of marketing. The more granular you can get with who your target audience is a real plus. So if you clearly know that you want to work with coaches, I think that's a great start. Probably a simple Google search would help, but also you may want to get a list. Some of these marketing companies probably can get you a list of different online marketers, online coaches specifically. But I feel like even a simple Google search for like life coach, digital products, yada, 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 you could find a lot of them that way. But what I found is, and it's easy to get people's information nowadays, it's not that hard, whether it's through LinkedIn, a simple Google search, but you can typically get an email of some sort or a phone number. And some of it's going to be process of elimination for sure. Like you don't know how many of these coaches are making over six figures. And if you have some clients already that are already in that realm, that's also a good place to go as well. But I'm a big believer in what I call the advice strategy. When you reach out to someone directly, in this case, I would definitely not go to an assistant. I would try to get their information directly, which again is not that hard to get nowadays with technology. LinkedIn, a lot of times, I know even on my own LinkedIn, I have like my email address up there and a lot of information that I forgot I put in there a long time ago, because sometimes I'm surprised when people have my email and they email me directly, and it's usually because I remember, oh yeah, it's on my LinkedIn account. So don't sleep on LinkedIn. A lot of that information people put in there and they forgot they put it in there, even if they don't want it to be necessarily public. But the way the advice strategy works, it's really, really simple. You just say, hey, I would love your advice. I want to gear my copywriting towards like successful, always use flattery, online coaches like yourself. And then I would ask, is this a good idea? And if it is, you can say even if yes, if you were me, how would you do it? Okay, so going to people with advice, and I think I've done this on a couple other Facebook Lives, but I can't stress, like people get very flattered when you're asking for their advice, as opposed to, hey, I'm doing market research. Would you sit down with me to answer a couple questions? No, I don't have time for that. But if you send a personalized message, and I think also, adding a little flattery in there is not a bad thing. Like, hey, you've built this impressive brand. I really admire what you've done. I would love to ask your advice. I would love to ask for your business advice. So I think that's the way to do it. And again, I just don't feel like it's that hard to get a list of online entrepreneurs. And I'm sure you can gauge the ones that are really successful, that maybe have a lot of SEO going on in your area, but I guess online doesn't really matter where they're located. And you just need to get a couple of these entrepreneurs. So you can just send like a templated email, again, fill in the more customized parts of it, like their name, what you're impressed with about their business. And I would shoot high, go for ones that are really successful. And I think by gauging their advertising online would be a good way to do that, because obviously if they're advertising more online, probably means they're more successful. And you can even look at just the quality of their online presence a lot of time probably speaks to someone that has a budget versus someone who doesn't. I know in my industry that's very, very easy to tell. Like I think in our case, we actually put some money into a lot of our online endeavors. It shows, which probably indicative of the fact that we have a bigger budget to spend, which means we're probably a bigger firm relative to other firms. So I would guess you could use that same strategy. I'm thinking about a couple coaches I know that are doing some serious Facebook Lives, and they've got some really good looking advertising on places like Instagram. And I know for a fact they're doing over 6 figures. So I think that's probably a good gauge. The quality of their online marketing probably is indicative of the fact that they are making more. So I hope that helps, but I think the advice strategy is an old one, it's a good one, and it doesn't get used very often. Never use the word market research. If I hear market research, I just sound like literally I want to cry. Like someone's going to force me to sit down in an interview style question type of setting, and it just sounds like, I want to blow my brains out. So, using the advice strategy there is just a way more powerful, not only palatable, but you'll actually have people excited to talk to you because we all love to share our experiences and we all think we have wisdom that we can share, but no one ever asks us. And that's what you're doing. And go from that angle, like you're giving them the gift to share their ideas. So hopefully that's helpful. If you have other questions, just put it into the comments section of this Facebook Live. Happy to respond to those as well. Okay, great. Second question comes in from Tatiana Mehmedi. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Tatiana writes in, what are some ways I can reward my employees to keep them motivated and excited in a quick service type restaurant? And a little background on Tatiana's business. The summer gets really busy and we want to do something exciting where we give someone 500 to 1,000 bonus at the end of the season. I was thinking a chart to keep track so people can get really excited. I don't want it to be cutthroat competition. I want the team to work well together and I want them to feel appreciated. Okay, I think this is great. And I think that anything where there is a little bit of competition, team building is a great way to go about how to build some sort of culture within your business, which is really important. In fact, we just did a big kickball event yesterday with my team, which was in the rain. It was funny because it was just like this muddy field, and you could tell everyone was kind of a little bit tepid in the beginning, like no one wanted to get dirty. But as soon as we started playing and people started falling in the mud, we just had an amazing time, and it was just a great bonding experience, especially with COVID. We hadn't all been together for a long, long time. So it's like you forget how important it is to have that human connection and do things as a team. So what you may want to do is break this up in maybe an individual goal, but also a team goal. So maybe someone who is doing the best, recognize them, give them an incentive, use some sort of ranking board to make it like an exciting competition. But maybe if the team does something well as well, there's another prize where you divvy it up. Because I think team, type of where people work together in some team environment where everyone has to do their part can be very powerful as well. And that's something I'm actually reconsidering with our business here, is we're doing a lot of individual competition where the person who's the best operations person or best financial advisor over the month or the quarter was rewarded, and we do rank it. But I think, having a team goal too, like we did a team goal. Actually, we were doing a team goal this year. I take that back, where if we hit a certain team number, where we bring in X amount of assets this year, we're actually going to do a trip. In fact, we actually hit our goal right before COVID to go on a trip to Miami, which has been literally pushed back now by 2 years because of COVID that we still haven't gone on yet, that we still have to have. But I think those team goals are really powerful, in a lot of ways are even better than just having the individual goals. But I think you should also have individual goals too, where people can shine and, basically be, in competition with their peers in a friendly way. But it gives everyone, it's just human nature. Just like we were playing kickball yesterday and everybody wanted to win because now it was a competition. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's healthy as long as you keep it healthy. But I think put it in the context of a team goal as well is a more powerful way to do it. But I congratulate you. I think that's a great idea. And just the thought that you're thinking about the culture of your business, which I think is everything at the end of the day. If you have a great culture, it just takes care of a lot of different issues in your business versus a more toxic culture. And of course, it always comes from the top. So however you behave, everybody behaves. So you have to be really, really careful and audit the way that you act and the way that you essentially carry yourself, because that does get carried into the culture. positive or negative. They always say, however people are handled at the lowest level of your business, go like right to the top, and the culture typically is the same throughout. So that's a really important thing to think about. But no pressure. Don't screw it up. Do your best. Everyone's watching, but it is really, really important the way that you actually handle yourself. So great question. Again, any other comments about that, just feel free to put it into the Facebook Live here, and I can address. Okay, next question comes in from Andres Blandon, pronouncing that correctly. Andres writes in, how can I make it faster to 1 million in net income? Okay, that's your net profit. His background here is, I recently sold my rental property and have an estimated $100K sitting in the bank account. My W-2 work experience as a network engineer in the IT industry. I have the opportunity to start my own business from scratch in staffing and recruiting, or I could use the money I have in the bank to purchase an established business with cash flow. The business will most likely be a food and beverage business like a local pizza shop. I have 3 boys at home and active in my community with church events and helping others. I think that purchasing a business will create cash flow from day one, and I can use proper marketing and advertising strategies to grow the business. Or I can use my time to be the recruiter operator for my new business and work on setting up systems and processes to make the business successful. This will most likely require for me to use my 100K savings for the next 3 to 6 months. My exit strategy is to make either of these businesses self-sustained and sell at a large time for profit. Any advice is appreciated. Okay, so this is a good question, and I think this really is geared towards really where your strengths lie. Are you better at starting something from scratch? Have you done that before? Is another question, because if you've never started a business from scratch, and it's something that's not really tested, that could add a lot of different variables. Whereas if you have a business that can run relatively successful, like you said, it's an existing business where there's already been tested, it's already something that is profitable, well, of course, that can shortcut a lot of the processes. And maybe it's not as lucrative as coming up with an idea from scratch or starting something from scratch where essentially there are no processes in place and there might be a bigger return on investment on that. But I think that really lies into where your expertise are. Like I started my own firm here, Payne Capital Management, 13 years ago, but I had already had a practice at a big firm. And I was essentially moving that practice out of the big firm, kind of starting it from scratch, but I already knew I had clients. I already had some, modicum of an idea what processes look like because I used them within the firm that I was working in before. So it was almost like taking an existing business out of this firm in this case and running it independently on its own. So I think that's more like the latter where you're buying an existing business in a lot of ways. For me, I would be way more comfortable with that than saying, hey, I want to start some business from scratch in an industry that I kind of know about, but I don't know everything about it, and see if it works or doesn't work. It's the old proverbial, if you build it, they will come. I don't like that model in general because you could build something magnificent and then find out there's no market for it. It doesn't work that well. And a lot of my entrepreneurial buddies get into that trap a lot where they get excited, they have this idea and they try it and it absolutely fails and they put a lot of time and effort into it. But it depends. Maybe you have the inclination for that kind of risk and, you like to see what you can do, which respect. But I think, from my perspective, if you can take an existing business and use that as a platform to essentially use your entrepreneurial spirit. Like, we took our traditional business, wealth management business, and we've been very entrepreneurial with it over the last decade or so. We've done, we took something that's a very boring, plain vanilla business and we've added a lot of different marketing strategies and we've tried a lot of strategies that worked, that haven't worked between radio, podcasts, doing a lot of media. And, we really have taken something that would traditionally not be the most entrepreneurial business and made it very, very entrepreneurial, but it had an existing model that worked. I prefer that, but you've got to decide where you lie. But again, I always believe, why reinvent the wheel? Or my friend used to say when I was in a band, learn the rules first when you're learning an instrument and then break the rules after you learn the rules. So if this is your first real entrepreneurial venture, you might be better off the training wheels all on again and getting that existing business. And then from there, using that as a platform to get experimental and get more entrepreneurial and more creative once you get the business rolling and flowing, because now you've learned the rules, you know what works and doesn't work. And then from there, you can try a lot of different experiments from a marketing perspective or a business growth perspective, or even trying some different types of brands, or, whatever it happens to be. But, having that initial springboard where you can do or fund essentially a lot of the different, tactics and strategies you want to try. So you get the gist of what I'm saying there. But I'm obviously partial to more the latter there, getting an existing business. But I don't want to deter you if you just have like this crazy high-risk entrepreneurial spirit and you don't even care if it doesn't make it or not make it. But I suspect that you do care that if it does actually become a success or not. If you have more questions on that, again, feel free to put it right here in the comment section and I'll get back to you on it. Okay, next question comes in from Martina Wenk. She writes in, how to get stronger in motivating myself. Okay, we can all relate to this. And a little background for Martina is I run a home health care business in Switzerland. I'm a nurse by trade. Doctors and hospitals refer patients to me, and I bill the insurance companies for services we provide. I sometimes feel I lose motivation and direction. How do I stay on track and keep motivated and moving forward? Okay, this is great because I think this is a real experience we've all been through, is especially when you work for yourself. It's not like when you work for somebody else and there's the pressure of whatever expectations they have on you. There might be real deadlines to meet. When you work for yourself, you're kind of making it up every day on your own, right? You're trying to make yourself accountable to goals. And I think a lot of times that's a lot harder than actually working for somebody else, where maybe a lot of those parameters are put in place for you, where you don't have to think about it as much. So a couple things that I would recommend here, which I think can really, really be helpful. Number one is start a new project. Come up with a new project within your business that you have to work on something new, because I find sometimes when you work on something different and new, it gets you more excited, but it also gets you more in that startup mode again. And I'll give you an example of that in my own business. Like during the pandemic, I felt that staleness was happening where you couldn't go out and see people. You're kind of managing the business that you have. Business slowed up a little bit in the peak of the pandemic. We didn't have as many clients coming in, so the client work was slower. And I decided okay, what kind of other marketing opportunities can I work on? So we started a podcast, and I just launched a newly launched YouTube channel in the last couple months as well. And learning these new skill sets, working on these new projects, tend to make me probably be even more organized with my time, because now I've got more projects that I have to work on. And when you're busier, there's an old saying, momentum is money. When you get that momentum, what happens is it kind of pushes you to be with the normal things that you were actually working on before, where you didn't have to juggle as much because things were slower. Well, now all of a sudden you've got this new project you're working on over here, which means you have to be more time efficient with everything. There's that old saying, if you want to get something done, give it to the busiest person in the room, because the busiest person has momentum. And because they have momentum, they're easily or more inclined to get tasks done as soon as possible. When you have all the time in the world and that evolutionary pressure is off you, well, you get lazy. You sit there, you're like, oh, I'll get to the project I have all day. And what you're doing is you're actually slowing momentum. And when you slow momentum, you can see what's happening there. You're getting things done at a much slower pace than you normally would have. You're not as apt to get on tasks, and you're not as apt to start new projects. So I think by forcing yourself into a new project, which you're not going to feel the momentum at first either, by the way, it's going to be a little bit drudgery, but force yourself to do it and give yourself action steps to get it started. And then when you get it started, what will happen is the momentum will slowly pick up. Like what we did was, okay, we recorded our first podcast. I had to get the software together for it. I had to build a script for it. And each task that I did at first was very arduous, a real pain in the ass. But as each task got done, all of a sudden, okay, it starts to build some momentum. And as those projects come in and the new things that you have to start doing build momentum, you record the first one, you feel good about it. You feel a surge of energy. And now every week I have that in my schedule now. It's an extra thing in my week. So now I have to make sure everything else, all my other projects are done, so that project gets done. And then all of a sudden the wheels are turning, the momentum starts to grow again. But I think that's always the best way to get yourself out of a rut, is start a new project that will get the momentum going again. I can think of anything I've ever done in the past that's always been the savior, is start a new project. Because if not, without it, doing the same thing you're doing already, you're never going to get excited about it. You're never going to get yourself to a place where you're just like, I'll do more of what I'm already bored with. Like, it's just, you can do it for a couple of weeks, but eventually you'll just burn out again and you'll be in the same place. So start thinking about how you could do something different, something innovative that's not what you do all the time, to enhance your business, to grow your business, that's not in the same skill set you've been continually doing. I mean, ideally use your business as a springboard to learn lots of different skills. I think that's actually a really beautiful way to keep the entrepreneurial spirit always going, because it's like you're never going to be in the same business. What I mean by that is, like, I look at my own business, like I started out as a financial advisor, that my main job was just talking to clients, talking about their portfolio, into, again, springboarding into learning how to do a radio show, learning how to do a podcast, learning how to be in front of a camera and speak. And all these skills take time and practice, but I think we're just engineered to learn new skills. Like, if we're not doing it, our brain starts to just kind of whittle away, but no pressure, keep doing what you're doing. But you kind of get my gist there. So that's what I would recommend there. Remember, momentum is money. It's a key thing to always remember. And when you have that momentum, use it. Use it to get everything done, because you don't have it all the time. So when you have it, you got to make sure that you're in that flow of using it. So hopefully that's helpful. Any other questions on that, just put some comments in the comment section, which leads us to our last question here from Scott Dunlap. Scott writes in, is it best that I continue working with a large brokerage, or should I venture out and establish my own RIA? Fee-based can only, or should I look to join a team or partner with an independent advisor? Little background on Scott's business. He's got a business like mine. Financial planner, currently working with a large firm, produce insurance assets under management, fee-based planning, but limited scope on both the insurance and AUM side. That's assets under management for those not in the industry. I'm becoming less interested in selling insurance, but it is a good revenue driver, as I need to increase my AUM 10 to 15 times to make a decent return. Turn on which direction I need to go. Well, I'm partial to this because I have an RIA, registered investment advisory firm, and I think the future is not selling products for commission, but doing business fee-based, where, again, you don't have the instant gratification because the money comes in, you don't get a big commission up front. You charge a lower fee, but you charge that fee continually, which has a snowball effect over time. So I would wean yourself off a commission business. I think it's an old school business. It's hard to build a foundation like that. So what you need to decide here is, if you go the fee-based route and you suck it up and move from a commission-based business, which I did with my business very early on. I decided I was going to do fee-based because I just thought that it was going to be, again, it was going to make this a much better asset longer term, because you have the continual fees go in that grow over time by foregoing the instant gratification. But also it just builds a much bigger, more saleable business down the line for you, or a real asset, as opposed to something that's like very transactional, which has a very little life outside of you every single year, starting from zero on day one and trying to reinvent the wheel. Whereas if you have those fees coming in every single year and you're just building that over time, that has a very powerful effect on the kind of business that you're building. It's a real business you're building versus what I would call just like a very transactional, almost not really even a business. You're just really working for, whether it's in your case, we're a bigger firm, but you're really not building a true business, in my opinion. Now, the other side of this is, how do you do it? Do you go out independently, or do you work for a company with some infrastructure? This just depends on your ability to market and your ability to actually want to get into the actual nitty gritty of dealing with the back end of a business, which means paying bills, actually picking the service providers. I went from working at Merrill Lynch, a big firm, to working on my own. And now all of a sudden, like, I literally had to write the bills out every single month. I had to sit down with a checkbook back in the day and write every single vendor's bill out. I had to pick the vendors that we were going to use, where, again, all that stuff was done for me when I had a back office at a big firm. So I think, number one, you got to decide, like, are you willing to do that? or do you have enough money or revenue coming in that you could hire someone to help you with that? Now, ideally, your business grows. You don't do that forever. But initially, you're going to do all that stuff. You're going to wear a lot of hats you never wore before, and you got to be okay with that. The second part of this equation, which I think is extremely important, and it really is the lifeblood if you want to be an independent registered investment advisor where you're really out on your own, that is your ability to market by yourself. The real lifeblood of this business, the real successful people in this business, that I'm in any business, is your ability to market and to attract clients. Now, if you're dependent on the firm you're working for to give you leads or people to connect with, it's going to be very hard to go from that to all of a sudden you have to drum up your own business. Now, on the flip side, if you actually are very good at drumming up your own business, you like to market, then the independent route, in my opinion, is the best route to go. Then the sky's the limit. Again, you have to deal with the back office issues, but eventually you can delegate that out to other people. And that's something that's going to be more short-term as you bring more business in. So they're the questions you have to ask yourself. If you feel like I don't market that well, I could use the help of a firm, then it's better to work with a firm like mine that actually does do a lot of marketing and they can bring business in for you to work on, then that's a better solution. But they're the two questions you need to answer. Like, am I willing to do the back office and make some of those back office decisions I've never had to make before? And number two, you have to ask yourself, are you good at marketing, at bringing business in on your own? So hard questions to answer, but I think if you can answer those two questions, you'll know which way to go. I hope that's helpful. And if there's any questions you have before I drop this live off, this is the time to do it. I'll give you like a minute here. Well, a couple seconds actually. Write your questions in. It does not appear we have any questions. So, okay. Thanks as always. I really enjoyed doing this. We'll get at it next month. Again, if there's any clarifying questions you want on this specific Facebook Live, just go ahead and put them in the comments section here. And we'll do it again next month. I hope everyone's having a great summer and love answering all your questions about your business, wealth planning, investing. I'm here for you. I'm your go-to. Don't be shy. Ask your questions and we'll do it again next month. Thank you very much. Have a great day.